better and more effective. So let's talk about, Kanan, show me screen. Let's talk about how tournament prep works, okay? Like I said, it's going to affect you really and truly almost the entire rest of the year, at least until after the second tournament. So kind of what's normal from here on out, go ahead and take off headphones for now. What's normal is we'll do little vocabulary lessons, specifically because there's so much debate terminology I haven't taught you yet. So I'll have quick vocab lessons, and then everybody will kind of separate into their 4 different skills for that day, depending on what type of speech or debate you're doing. So, Jax, you're the only one. Sorry. So it's all on you, buddy. Number 1, would you say, having done this many, many times, do you think tournament prep is actually a big deal? Yeah. And do you think it's pretty important to actually take your time seriously? I didn't pay him off beforehand. This is real. Would you agree that when you put in work, it actually pays off? Yeah. And does the time go more quickly than you think it actually will? No, that's okay. That's okay. Usually kids are like, yeah, I didn't realize how fast the tournament was going to get here. Okay, so Jax, while we're on the subject of you, remember you can follow that day's instructions unless it's something you've already done, but it'll be pretty important that Kanan goes through them, right? Because you guys have a weird situation. Okay, so good debaters have evidence, so I have evidence for you, Ella and Finley. In 2020, I had to track a bunch of data. Teachers always do that to show that we're actually doing our job. And in 2020, it was kind of sad. Only 60% of debaters were making good, significant progress. And then I had to switch things a lot because of the pandemic. The way I used to do tournament prep is very different than how I do it nowadays. But the good news is the data shows me it's working way better, because last year, 86% of the team made really significant progress. And the 14 that didn't were kind of actively trying, not very hard. So it really does help. So there's some numbers I'm going to throw at you. Ella and Finley, really focus. Number 1, so it's February 10th, and I always point over there when I talk about the tournaments, because remember, the first tournament is March 27th, and so that means I sat down and counted, and that means you have 31 class periods to get ready for the tournament, which ends up being about 20 hours, because I do have to take some of your time with vocab lessons, because like I said, they're really important. So everyone kind of, I know it's early, and like we all have Super Bowl brain, but like think about that for just a second. Knowing that I have 20 hours, focus, knowing that I have 20 hours between me and the tournament of in-class time, it goes really fast, right? Like it's gonna be here before you know it. So, except this week again, and I'm so sorry, remember that we're gonna continue to have after-school practice, except the week of parent-teacher conferences. We can't have practice that week because there's stuff going on after school. So this will be the last week it gets moved, hopefully, but we did have to bump it to Wednesday one more time. So let me show you a quick preview just so you can kind of start wrapping your brains around what things will look like. A lot of this stuff is unpublished, just sitting there waiting for the future, but see how a lot of the module is their vocab lessons and tournament prep, and vocab lessons and tournament prep. Let me keep scrolling for a second here. Vocab lessons and tournament prep, hold on. Yeah, so most of the time I break it down in the title. This is what this group is doing, this is what this group is doing, but most days you're doing different skills that all build on each other. So just so you know, as far as grading works, what we do in class is a practice grade. Every day your tournament prep does go on your grade, and they're really important skills. And then they all pay off because the tournament itself is an assessment grade that basically everybody passes. I'll tell you how you get the full points on the assessment in just a second. But we in debate actually have special circumstances. For the rest of the school, the third quarter late work cutoff, I think is March 14th, so like a month from today. However, for debate, it makes a lot more sense that the tournament is the cutoff. If every single thing we're doing is building to that. So that means I actually can still change your grades after the quarter ends, which I will only for a good reason, that if you do need to turn in tournament prep late, you can turn in any tournament prep until the tournament, which is March 27th, which is weird because that's after the quarter ends on March 21st. So I'll remind you of that when it gets closer. Okay, so here's how you get your full assessment points, which basically everybody does. You kind of have to really try to not get your full points because all of this, in my experience, is doable. Kids have done this a lot in the past. So oratory, you'll try and get at least a 7.5-minute speech, and we'll talk more about specifics in the future. Extemp is going to try and do 3 3-minute speeches with at least 3 pieces of research in each speech. So 3 is the magic number for extemp. And LD and policy, this sounds difficult, but it's totally not. LD and policy has to win 1 out of their 3 rounds, but for real, most kids at Albion usually win 2. So 1 is extremely doable, and I'm going to coach you to be able to do that, okay? So, and again, we'll talk about that as it gets closer. So everybody, this is so important. I know it's early and your brain isn't fully awake yet, but if you're absent, it's really incredibly important that you go back and start from where you left off because the skills build on each other. And being absent in other classes matters, but in debate, it extra matters because every tournament prep you miss is a skill that you're not prepared for at the actual tournament. So be really, really careful, okay? That you pick up from where you left off. If you do end up wanting to switch events, if we start prepping for the tournament and you're like, you know what? I might not be into this one. You only have about 3 or 4 days until you pass the point of no return, not being able to get caught up. So if you are feeling like I might actually want to switch, you would need to let me know really, really soon, and definitely not after this week because it's too late at that point. So just keep in mind, there's 1 of me and 27 of you. So there's 4 different groups of people doing 4 different things. Debate is basically 4 classes in 1. Focus. So I'm going to be walking around and helping you as fast as I can. Policy has the added benefit of Jax is our only debate 2 kid. 3rd period is a little bit luckier that way. So that's why he's kind of in the middle of y'all. So for your policy, he would be your first line of defense and then me after. And everybody else, I will get to you as fast as I possibly can. But every once in a while, you might have to wait and kind of take the next step while you're waiting for me, okay? So be patient, but also it's really important that you do ask for help when you need help. Sorry, new CD chart, go look on my desk. Make sure you're asking for help. Don't just sit being confused because it probably just won't go away on its own, okay? So one thing that happens is I'm going to try and set you loose so you have maximum tournament prep every day. As I'm just going to set you loose as fast as I can. But because there's 4 different groups of debaters doing 4 different things, I'm not going to spend a ton of time reading every single instruction to you every single day. On the Canvas assignment, like today, this is what tournament prep usually looks like. So it'll show you what number we're on, what the specific task you're doing that day is. There's always a debate meme, usually created by former debaters that were on the team. And then it breaks it down. So if you're policy, you would do this direction. If you're Lincoln Douglas, you find the section that's Lincoln Douglas, and they always go in the same order, right? So that if you're extemp, you know yours is always at the bottom, oratory, yours is 3rd to last. But I have had it happen where kids don't pay attention and they start following the instructions for the wrong type of debate. Plus, it's really important. Sometimes the instructions are longer, sometimes shorter. But before you get started for that day, it really is super important that you carefully read all the instructions, okay? Yeah.
I've seen that policy video.
Good. Then you and I will talk about what you'll do today instead. Okay. So, I can't force anyone to have this attitude, but if you really are motivated to do well and to take down Eastma and Indian Hills and Butler, and that sounds fun to you to be able to destroy your opponents, then honestly, it's very important that you try and worry about your own progress. Debate can be distracting because a lot of times we have to be talking and actively debating. So it is really important that you focus on your own progress. You will be shocked how fast you can get off task and how much time you can waste if you start focusing on what's happening around you. So remember, in debate, if you want feedback on what you're working on, which some days you're going to want it and some days you might not, but you need to make sure you ask. If you never ask that you want feedback, then I'll assume that you're doing okay. You don't need to feel bad about asking me. I'm your coach. I'm being paid to help you, but I also know that sometimes you don't need help. So there's 2 ways. So everybody look. Number 1, y'all know how to make a submission comment, yeah? Okay, so that's one method. If you're wanting feedback on a Google Doc, though, it's actually just faster to share the Google Doc with me. And what happens, anytime someone shares a Google Doc, it pops up in my email, and then that helps me keep track of my to-do list. So everybody, really, really important here. Let's say you've already shared that Google Doc with me in the past because you wanted feedback, but let's say you want more feedback, Cannon. You would share it with me again, even though it says it's already shared with me, because what it does is it sends me another email, which again puts it back on my to-do list. So you might be sharing it with me multiple times, or you might not, depending on how you're feeling. So just so you are aware, I'm almost done, but stick with me, guys. Just so you're aware, this was my thought process. When I make tournament prep assignments, it's truly to help you. So the questions I ask myself is, number one, is this going to actually help them get ready? How do I keep them accountable as their teacher to help them make sure they're making progress? And is it worth your time? I'm not going to have you do stuff that's just a waste of your time. It's all for a purpose, to help you take down your opponent. So fair warning, and this sounds scary, most of you are going to be just fine. You've already done such a great job so far. Focus, focus. But if you do waste your time, which it really will be on you to have self-control, or if you're absent a lot and you never make up your missing assignments, then you're going to have some really natural consequences, which, number one, you're going to have lots of missing assignments. When you get in a hole in debate, it's a little bit tough to get out of it. So try and stay on top of things. You'll also be really stressed at the tournament because, again, every missing assignment in debate is a skill that you're not prepared for, and it might lead you to not having as good of an experience. So try and stay on top of things and really get going. And unlike creative writing, I've mentioned this in the past, but starting today, you basically should never have free time in debate because there's always something you could be doing. You could always be trying to find that next perfect piece of research or crafting that next perfect argument. So you will start seeing that in the results store at the tournament, that there are kids who do fine, but they never win because they are really not pushing themselves as much as they can. So just something to be aware of, okay? I think this is almost the last thing. It's really helpful if you can kind of stay in your own bubble of concentration. It's almost like a horse wearing blinders. Truly, it can be kind of distracting. That's why we're going to split debate next year into speech versus debate, so it's just not all in the same class. But it can get distracting some days. So if you put on blinders, sometimes putting on headphones and then blasting some music so that you're blocking things out so that you're focusing on, I am going to destroy my opponents, it will make a difference. And so, if nothing else, on the days where tournament prep gets kind of repetitive and you're like, oh, we've done so much tournament prep and I have to do more, then you should try and picture that it really does pay off. You have to, honestly, every single coach, I just had a meeting with the coaches recently, and every single one of us we all said the same thing. We all try and tell our debaters, it's not always fun yet, but it gets to that point. If it doesn't feel fun yet, I promise you it's coming, but debate honestly kind of stinks just a little bit. Before we get to the point where you actually start using all the skills, it can drag a little bit. So the days where it feels like it's dragging, remind yourself, they are all actively coaching their kids to take us down. And we are not going to let them because at Albion we rock and we're really good at debate. So as soon as I say go, which is not quite yet, so Kanan, go ahead real quick.
Which one of those guys wears the super...
That's Mr. P right here from Indian House. So on tournament prep today, I'm just going to explain really quick, but then it would still be on you to go read the instructions. LD and policy, I'm going to have you watch a video to help you wrap your brain around the topic, which honestly takes a while. So you're going to be taking a few notes and turning in notes today, but it's really important that you concentrate on the video. So LD and policy, go. Oratory, it's really good to start by seeing really good examples before you start. So oratory, you're going to read some examples from kids who won the state tournament in the past, and you're going to kind of analyze them. So oratory, go read the rest of the instructions really carefully. And extemp, you're going to start delving into doing some research for the topic. So extemp, this becomes very normal for you, but there are a little more instructions for you today. It breaks it down exactly what you should be doing, but you're going to be researching Utah news to start out with. So everybody start by reading those instructions really carefully. Does anybody have any last questions about tournament prep or this process before we officially start for the first time? And then I'm just going to help you keep an eye on your time. This is normal. Usually, this is the point of the class period where I set you loose. So it's 8:13, and we clean up at 8:50. So it is a good chunk of time. You could get a lot done in that time, but it also depends on how well you concentrate, okay? So no questions? Okay, go. Lincoln Douglas.